Hi everyone, it's Miss Terry and I'm here today with my January picks for students in grade 4. We'll go through some fiction, some graphic novels, and some nonfiction. We're going to start off with a scary one. It's called Hushaby, and this is a story about two girls, Antonia and her younger sister Lucy, and they're having some troubles at school. Antonia kind of, she keeps her head down, tries not to make any waves, be quiet, because she gets bullied a lot. Her family is relatively poor, and the kids at school pick on her. So she spends most of her time in the woods behind the trailer park where her and her mom and sister live. Now, Lucy, on the other hand, kind of lives in her own world. She's got a very active imagination. And one day while they are exploring the woods, they come across this little kind of dirty, broken doll's head. And Lucy asks Antonia if she could keep the doll, and Antonia's like, yeah, fine, whatever. But then she starts to hear Lucy talking to the doll, and she's named the doll Hushaby, and Lucy is convinced that Hushaby is talking back and can help her and her sister make things better. But it doesn't take long before Antonia realizes that something's not quite right with Hushaby, and some of the things that start happening around them might be caused by the doll. This is definitely on the creepy side. The List of Unspeakable Fears is another one in the creepy category because everybody seems to enjoy these scary stories. And this is about a young girl named Essie who has a lot of fears. She's afraid of a lot of things. Some are kind of irrational, like polar bears, which she's not going to find very much in New York City. But she has trouble sleeping. She sometimes sleepwalks. She's starting to have like full-on panic attacks, just trying to deal with the anxiety that she has after the death of her father. Well, her mom is a nurse and decides to get remarried, and they end up moving. It's called North Brother Island, and it's off of New York, and it's where they send people who are very, very sick. And basically, they're probably not going to get better. And they go to this hospital on the island to kind of keep their sickness away from the rest of the city. And now Essie and her mom are moving there, and Essie is terrified because there are some strange things that start to happen, and some nurses go missing. And Essie decides that she's going to try to solve the mystery of what is going on the island. Again, I would say between this one and Hushaby, this one's probably a little bit creepier. Paradise on Fire is about a girl named Addie whose parents unfortunately died when she was 4 in a fire. And so she also has some anxiety about fire. She likes to draw maps and kind of plan out escape routes in whatever building she's in. And she's living with her grandmother, and her grandmother thinks it's time for Addie to kind of get outside and enjoy nature and try to make some friends. So she sends Addie to California for a wilderness camp, and she does make about 5 new friends that she's really enjoying. And then a deadly wildfire hits California, and Addie and her friends have to use all of their new survival skills that they have learned at camp in order to survive, especially when they get cut off from the adults in their life. So this is definitely a survival story as well as being a story of a girl trying to overcome her grief over the loss of her parents and move on with her life. So it's called Paradise on Fire. Let's look at a little bit of a funnier one. This one is a new one in the Dog Diaries. This one is called Roughing It by James Patterson. And Junior is done with obedience school in the last book. And now he is going to camp, and he is having a really good time until a obedience-obsessed human comes and tries to make him calm down and not have as much fun, and he's trying to decide how to get away from this human being. So that's Dog Diaries, Roughing It. Imaginary is a story of 11-year-old Zach, whose father has passed away, and he's kind of struggling with the loss of his dad. And he had an imaginary friend growing up. You can kind of see the outline of him on the cover. He's this fuzzy creature named Shovel, and Shovel has always been helping him, but now he's in middle school, and it's really the time when most imaginary creatures go away, but Shovel is still around and still helping Zach with his grief and trying to kind of help him get through school. Unfortunately, he ends up getting in a fight with a bully and his best friend and gets sentenced to detention, and this is when Shovel realizes that maybe it's time to disappear from Zach's life. a new Jake Maddox sports book. This one is called Full Court Mess, and this is actually about a girls basketball team called the Dingoes, who are just about to enter the regional playoffs when they come back to their gym one night to discover that it has been horribly vandalized and it's just a mess. And Lisa is the main character in the story. She's the team captain, and she's struggling to keep her team together after this horrible case of vandalism. So it's called Full Court Mess. Eric versus Everything is a story about a young boy named Eric who reminds me a lot of Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. And he comes from this long line of Vikings, and even though it takes place in present day, his family still kind of has that, let's conquer the world attitude. And Eric is more like, I would like to avoid everything. I don't like things. I'm afraid of everything. I'm small. I'm scrawny. Just leave me alone. Well, he ends up getting sent to his axe-wielding cousins in Minnesota for the summer, and they have decided they're going to help him conquer all of his fears. And he's kind of like, I really don't want to do that. So some hilarity ensues, and this is definitely on the funny side. Second Sleep is about a brother and sister Max and Rosie, whose mom has disappeared. She left behind her cell phone, but she did leave a note, but with no contact information, and she's just gone. And so they go to live with their grandmother, and grandma decides maybe we need to get out of the city, get away from questions about their mom, and go stay at their lakeside cabin, which is actually on a property that is about to be bought by a developer. Now, the kids really find a lot of solace there. They really love being on the lake, and there's no electricity there, so they just kind of are away from the real world, so to speak. And they discover that each night they fall asleep twice, and during that second sleep they end up dreaming about a group of kids that aren't really there, and they realize that maybe it's not totally a part of their dream world after all. So that's called Second Sleep. Strangeville School is Totally Normal is kind of a lot like Wayside School, but maybe with a turn for the dark. And this is about a young boy named Harvey Hill who's been sent to this school, and it has a lot of weird things in it, like a giant rat. They have crocodiles that they put in the sewer to kind of help keep the pipes clean, and there's this kind of bloody-minded nurse that you're always like, I don't know if I want to go to her. I'm not sure she's gonna help me. And then an evil people swallowing supply closet. And after Harvey kind of gets over the initial shock of the strange creatures that live at this school, he discovers that some of the students are going missing in the closet, and he's determined to solve the mystery of what's happening in there. So that's called Strangeville School is Totally Normal. And then the last fiction one I'm going to talk about today, this one is called The Last Bear, and this is about a young girl named April who kind of lives just with her dad, and he's a little bit on the neglectful side in the sense that he's a scientist. He's always really wrapped up in his work. He doesn't have a lot of time for April, and he ends up getting this assignment to Bear Island, which is kind of off in the boonies up in the north, very cold, for 6 months, and he decides to take April with him. And unfortunately, even though it's called Bear Island, there's not supposed to be any bears left on the island due to climate change and things like that. And then one day, April discovers a malnourished polar bear that she decides she's going to nurse back to health and try to reunite him with other polar bears. So if you like animal stories, you'll definitely enjoy this. If you'd like adventure wilderness stories, you also enjoy this. So it's called The Last Bear. All right, let's look at some graphic novels. This first one is called The Secret Garden on 81st Street. And yes, parents, it is a take on the classic The Secret Garden, but it kind of has a present day twist to it. So Mary is the main character, and she loves video games, that's kind of where she lives her life. But unfortunately, her parents die in an accident, and she ends up going to live with an uncle in the city. But he doesn't believe in devices, so he doesn't really have any of those things that she normally likes to do. And then one day she discovers a secret rooftop garden that has kind of lost some of its glory. And she also discovers that her cousin is living upstairs in the apartment and kind of hiding away from the rest of the world. So with a new friend that she meets right here, she decides that she's going to restore the garden on the rooftop and hopefully get Colin out of the apartment so that he can join life. So it's called The Secret Garden on 81st Street. Treasure Lake is about two friends, Iris and Sam, and Iris is like, adventure, let's go do it. And Sam is like, no, let's not, let's be more careful. And during the summer, they're ends up exploring this unusually dry riverbed when they come across something that Iris had only read about, which is a hidden city that has usually hidden by water, but because it's been so dry, they discover it and they decide to solve the mystery of what happened to this city, why did it disappear, and are they going to be able to solve the mystery before the rains come? So it's called Treasure in the Lake. Fearless is the story about a girl named Kara and her friend Alice. They've been best friends forever, and Kara is really looking forward to spending the summer with her, but Alice ends up moving 2 towns away and really just kind of stops answering Kara's phone calls and emails and texts. And so Kara decides she's going to go track Alice down. She's going to ride her bike the whole way to Alice's new school and rescue what she believes is her friend who must be in trouble if she's not responding to her. Well, unfortunately, when she gets there, she discovers that Alice actually just has made some new friends and is kind of moving on in her new life. And now Kara isn't 100% sure what she's going to do. This is called Fearless. I also have the newest Wings of Fire graphic novel. This is number 4 in the series. So if you're a huge fan and you've looked at the other 3, you might be ready for number 4. And then there's also a new one in the Grumpy Unicorn universe. This one is Grumpy Unicorn Saves the World. So if you've read the first one, Grumpy Unicorn went on a road trip, which he did not like because he's very grumpy. And now he's at home, and all he wants to do is stay at home, but his house has gotten kind of dirty while he was gone. So he gets this self-cleaning robot, which of course goes haywire and decides to take over the world. And it's up to Grumpy Unicorn and his friends to stop that from happening. Definitely on the silly side. Jana and the Unpossible Monsters is a story of actually a girl named Rainbow who is searching for her sister Jana, who disappeared when the monsters arrived. And now the world is kind of starting to dry up, but Rainbow goes from settlement to settlement saying, have you seen my sister? Have you seen my sister? And then Jana is discovered kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and she's been surviving on her own this whole time and has kind of gotten a little feral, which means she's a little bit wild. And Rainbow discovers that there's even more to this new world that she didn't know, and she's hoping that her and her sister Jana can help save their planet. It's a little bit on the creepy side. The monsters in here are a little scary. And then this one is based on a true story. This one is called Saving Sorya, and this is about a young girl named Chang who lives near a rainforest conservation group that she really wants to be a part of, but you're too young, there's nothing you can do to help. And she's like, no, I can. And she really proves to them that she has the safety of the rainforest in her mind. So they eventually do allow her to join and become a volunteer, but the first task is that she has to return her Sorya, who is a sun bear, who she's raised since birth. She has to return it to the wild, and this is the story of their adventure. So those are the graphic novels. Let's look a little bit at the nonfiction. The first one is called The World's Fastest Park Ride. So if you are a big enthusiast of roller coasters and you'd like to maybe make a bucket list of places you'd like to visit, this book talks about all of the fastest rides that are out there. A new spooky one in the Creatures of the Paranormal. This one is called American Ghosts. So these are stories that have taken place in America of people who have felt that they've had encounters with ghosts. Definitely on the creepy side. This next one is 101 Optical Illusions. I always enjoy looking at books like this, and it gives you information about how the illusion works, and you can see if your mind is smarter than your eyes. Captain Aquatics Awesome Ocean is one of the National Geographic Kids books. It's always got amazing photographs, and this basically talks about amazing animals, wild waves, super sharks, the deep sea, anything ocean. So if you're just really interested in those type of creatures and that habitat, you probably will enjoy Captain Aquatics Awesome Ocean. And then along those same lines, I also have part of the Scientists in the Field, a book called Project Seahorse. And this talks about what scientists are doing right now in order to save the seahorses in their habitat, which is unfortunately diminishing. A lot of fantastic photographs in this book. Sniffer Dogs is talking about animals that help humans, specifically dogs, and their amazing noses. And each part of this book is a different story of how a dog smelled its way into helping humans, whether it's sniffing out bombs, sniffing out drugs, sniffing out people who are trapped. It's really amazing what dogs can do. Worms for Breakfast is a book for animal lovers. This is basically how to feed a zoo, like with all of the different things that animals eat. How does a zoo make sure that all of the animals are fed and that they remain healthy? And this book will talk all about those interesting ways that the zookeepers keep the animals fed. Insect Superpowers looks at our tiniest creatures on the planet and the amazing things that they can do, whether it's lifting 100 times their weight, devouring an entire forest, how they keep predators away. If you love bugs, you will definitely enjoy Insect Superpowers. And then the last one is a brand new baking book for you Harry Potter fans. This is the official Harry Potter baking book with 40 different recipes inspired by the movie. So if you haven't had a chance yet to read the books, and that's on your bucket list, but you are obsessed with the movies, you will enjoy all the wonderful things that you can make in here, including the Hogwarts crust pie. Enjoy.